All right, let's turn to Joshua chapter 3. Lord willing, we'll be able to look at all 17 verses tonight. This will be the goal. So, Joshua chapter 3, we're going to be looking at, if you want to title it something, you could title it A Crossing Over People. This is the crossing over point that we have arrived at with the children of Israel. And we have, just bringing back up to speed, Joshua is now the commander under God's leadership. He's not the second lieutenant. He's the one that God is using to lead his people into the new life, if you will, into this new land, to eventually, of course, bring about the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. And so he's leading God's chosen people, that nation, into the promised land. And they're the southern part of crossing over into that land and head northward. And, one thing to remind you of is that what God gives us, we are to possess. And so that you see that story here. God's given them the land, but they got to go possess it. And so there's many blessings and promises God has given us, but we've got to reckon those in our life. We have to live in them, and that's a daily choice that we've got to make and trust Him. And so you see that picture there. And then, last time we were looking at the book of Joshua, we went through that unlikely convert. And like I said before, I love that story, that God's grace can reach the person in the most darkest sin, the most despairing moment, the most wickedness, that you can think of. God's grace can reach them. Their guilt can tumble down, can be erased. And so we saw true converting faith in Rahab. And what a great, as I think maybe Clay had mentioned it, or I can't remember, we were going back and forth a little bit at the end of it. But, she wanted a whole family to be delivered. And what a testimony of faith she left on the hearts of her family. And, I pray many of them came to follow the one true living God. We don't know those details, but we know she did. But now we come to this crossing of the Jordan. Now the pictures, I've got 2 or 3 pictures now, and I've got this worded on the side of the pictures that, you can leave it right there for a second. We've looked at this one several times, but just as a little context, again, we're going to be just north, so far from the Dead Sea is where they're crossing, okay, and then crossing over to Jericho. Go on to the other pictures, Lucas, if you don't mind, please. As I've said here, I don't own the rights to these pictures. The rights to these pictures belong to the individuals that I've typed out there. But this was a neat little rendering that I come across today, just to give you a little context as well of them crossing over. Again, the possible route of the Jews on up to Gilgal and then to Jericho. And then one other picture, again, the rights to that picture is on the bottom of the picture. But this is, again, the possible side. It gives you a little bit of, if you've never been near the Jordan River, and it probably changes in width depending on where you are, but that gives you a little bit of the lay of the land and where they would cross. And as I'll mention later, you got to remember, we're talking about 2 to 3 million people, roughly, that's crossing over. So it's not just a little snippet of the river that's going to be dried up, as we'll see in just a little while. God's going to do a miracle. I think that was it, wasn't it, Lucas? Just those 2? Yeah, okay. All right, well, let's jump into verse 1. And here I want us to think about, first of all, they're moving to the crossing over point. Moving. And that's what you're going to find in the children of Israel when they cross over. God's always moving them. And you think about a Christian's life, we are always moving in the direction of God, in His will for our life. And so in verse 1 it says, "And Joshua arose early in the morning, and they removed from Shittim and came to Jordan, he and all the children of Israel, and lodged there before they passed over." And so, when I look at this, when I see them, this is just a totally different people than their predecessors. They are a crossing over people. they have traveled to the Jordan, but now they have camped, and now they're waiting. This tells you that the hearts and minds of these people are right where they need to be. When your hands and feet are moving for God and in the right direction, that means your mind and heart is already moved. So their hearts and minds are right, and they're physically moving in the right direction now. And I'll just say this, if you're not moving in the right direction, you need to check your heart. You need to check the state of your mind, your perception of God, your trust, your faith in the Lord. If you're growing stagnant and not moving, there's a heart problem. There's a mind problem. There's a perspective problem. They don't have that problem. That's great. And so they've left where they were. They came to Jordan. All of them lodged there before they passed over. So you think about the promises of God, though, and when I look at this people and they've come to this crossing over point, I think I asked the question last time. God had already made a promise about the land, right? That I'm going to give you all the land. And He also promised them something about their enemies, right? What did God promise them about the enemies? Yeah, none could stand against them. But those are promises made in the past. And here's the beautiful thing about God's promises, is God's promises past, present, or future? Yes, thank you. That's the answer I was looking for. Yes, the answer is yes. Why is that? Because He is past, present, and future. That's the awesome thing about God. Is that His promises are there, and they're true to His nature. Anything God does is true to Himself. And so even though God made His promises in the past, they reckoned them as eternal promises for them. That makes for I think a powerful instrument in the hand of God. And so you see that just in this very first verse. And so you can't detach God and His nature from His promises. And so there's spiritual mobility, right? So now we see evidence of it with a physical mobility. Ask yourself the question, do I live that way? Is there physical mobility toward the will of God for my life? That you have to answer that question yourself. If there's not, then there's some spiritual issues there that you need to be working through. There's something that's holding you up, hindering you, if you're going to be a crossing over type of Christian. So they made camp. And what we find here, again, is that there's still some preparation. Have you ever found that no matter where you are in your Christian life, no matter where you are, there's always preparation? I mean, it's not like, okay, I have been a Christian this long, I don't have to prepare anymore. I'm just going to live the best Christian life ever. I'm just going to be the elite soldier for the Lord. No. I don't care how old you are, how long you've been saved, you're always preparing your heart for service. You're always preparing your heart for what God has for you next. And what you find here, they didn't just, we're going to Jordan and they just dive in and swim over. No, they stopped. They paused. And Joshua's leading them. There's still some preparation. There's still some perspective. Some things, there's a distance, if you will, that they need to follow. Okay? So, number 2 tonight, we're going to look at verses 2, 3, and 4. We see following at a safe distance. Following at a safe distance. Look at verse 2. It says, "And it came to pass after 3 days that the officers went through the host, and they commanded the people, saying, When ye see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, and the priests, the Levites, bearing it, then ye shall move from your place and go after it. Yet there shall be a space between you and it, about 3,000 cubits by measure. Come not near unto it, that ye may know the way by which ye must go, for ye have not passed this way hitherto." So they needed to wait. First of all, if you want to look at this, they needed to wait on God's direction. Man messed things up a long time ago when they thought they knew what they were doing. And no matter where we are, how much training you've had, you always need to be waiting on God's direction. And so as you look at verse 2, it says the officers went out. So you think about 2 to 3 million people roughly. There's a lot of messengers being sent out into these people and letting them know what they need to be doing as they wait. And it says here that they command the people, when ye see the Ark of the Covenant. So, the Ark of the Covenant. Anybody tell me, I know I'm asking you easy questions, but that's fine. I'm not here to try to trick you. But the Ark of the Covenant, what's special about the Ark of the Covenant? Why is that? It's become a centerpiece here in this story. Why is it important? Right. Exactly. I'm not going to go into all the details about the Ark of the Covenant, but God is present here. And these officers says, hey, when you see the Ark of the Covenant. So, apparently, the Ark of the Covenant's in one place, and it's going to move. And they says, when you see it. So if someone tells you, like, hey, you need to tell me when this thing moves, what are you probably going to be doing? You're going to be watching it. The presence of God. I don't know about you. I would like to assume that I know this much about you, that you want to be where God is, not where He's not. Okay? I heard one preacher say, it's been several years ago, he's like, the land without God is just dirt. And I've never forgot that quote. Like, God is what makes the land what it is. God is what makes life what it is. You want to be in the presence of God. And so when you see it, go after it. Okay? And so what this demands, when you think about this demands a certain level of maturity, right? A certain level of discipline. A certain level of sacrifice, checking your priorities, not getting distracted. Paul told Timothy, a good soldier's not going to be entangled, right, with certain things of the world. So, the presence of God's got a path for you, and He's going to be moving. You need to follow Him. But you got to keep your eyes. In other words, keep your heart in tune with Him. What are ways in which that we can make sure that we know where God's moving our life? What's some things that we can be doing that helps us stay in tune? This is a simple question, too. You probably already do some of them. Okay? Someone else? Okay, pray. Giving you a hint. Oh. Well, you just did it all. One Well, I was trying to stretch it out a little bit. That's okay. No, you're good. You're good. I'm trying to keep everybody awake. Like, get different. Never mind. You're good. But yes, be faithful to God. That is an umbrella for it all. So prayer, your Bible, church, etc. We see letter A, they needed to wait on God's direction. And then letter B, I've written down, they kept their focus on God's presence. And then the next thought under this, they must remain in a safe distance. You look at what they were telling the people, keep your eyes on the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord your God, because the Levites, the priests, the Levites bearing it, they're going to remove it from your place. Go after it. But then he says, don't get too close. He says, and yet there should be a space between you and it, about 2,000 cubits by measure. This is about a half a mile. Keep your distance. Now, is this trying to say that God's not very personable? No. Now, there's some reasons, and they're going to give us the answers here in the text, why they are to stay at a distance, at a half mile. Okay, keep in mind, 2 to 3 million people, so that helps us understand this too. Notice it says, "Come not near unto it," here you go, "that ye may know the way which ye must go." Okay? So it would be at a distance where everybody, as they're traveling, could stay in view of it. Okay? Don't get up and crowd it. Like, stay back from it so it's visible. It's clear. There's no obstructions. And everybody, the 2 to 3 million people, they can see where it is at all times. And when I think about this, God desires for us to know where He's leading us, and to stay at a distance, that you may know where you're going. You ever get arrogant in traveling and you think you know where you're going? I don't need to ask for directions. And you get lost. And so every day, though, God may be taking us in a different direction or a different path or whatever. We always need to follow His leadership. Never get arrogant and think you know where you're going. Always trust His leadership. Okay? So it was a distance where God's presence was visible to everyone. But you read a little bit further, it says, "For ye have not passed this way hithertofore." So God also, they are following, and that should be the context of your life. You're not getting ahead. You're not walking side. You're following. You're not side by side. You're following. And that's important. He's the leader. We don't need to try to, if I ask somebody to come up here and us walk step in step, and they just all of a sudden go a different direction, and I took 1 or 2 steps now in the wrong direction because I was a little too arrogant and trying to get right in line with them, I need to follow. That when I see him turn, I'm going to stay en route. And so they said, keep your distance so you know exactly step for step how to follow the Lord. And but then too, this is a safety thing, not just in the wrong direction, but you don't touch the Ark of the Covenant. God, this also tells us about the holiness of God. He's holy. If you remember back, there was a time where the Ark of the Covenant was in one place, and only one individual, and the high priest, would be the one to go back in the tabernacle and give the offering. And so the Ark of the Covenant also, keep your distance. God is holy. He should be reverenced. You see that picture as well when you think about God's presence. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. That's the narrative from cover to cover. Follow me. Follow me. Mm-hmm. Never been before. I remember that. Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. That's exactly what he said. Stay. Mm-hmm. 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 Right. I'm totally surprised. A- And I don't know, this may not apply to many of you. And I guess if you're grandparents, you may have watched this Bluey show. It's called Bluey. It's these a family of blue and red healers, and so. But anyhow, there's one episode where their navigational system, of course in Australia they call it sat nav, and so the kids didn't want to do. They were saying that their dad and mom was bossing them around. You're just bossing us around. And he was trying to help them understand that no, I'm helping you. You know, I'm giving you good direction. I'm not bossing you. So they get in the car. They got somewhere to go, and he puts the directions into sat nav, the navigational computer in the car, and it's a female voice, directing him where to go, and he goes, "Nope, not going that way," and the kids are like, "What, Dad? You got to do what? Nope, make a left turn. Nope, I think I'll go right. Make a right turn. No, I think I'll go left." And then finally they get to the spot, and they said, "Dad, we're not. No, this isn't it. You're supposed to listen to sat nav. You got to go exactly where she tells you to go." So he's trying to let them understand that I'm not bossing you around. I'm helping you know where you need to go. And so today, whenever I turn my GPS on, Henry and James like, "Listen to sat nav, Dad. Listen to sat nav," and so we know where we're going. But it was a distance to prevent them from getting lost. And I was thinking about one verse that came to mind was Psalm 119, verse 105. Says, "Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path." Okay? And so, again, he gives us steps that we are to take. And sometimes, most of the time, it's just the next step. It's not 50 ahead of you. We'd love to I want to plan ahead, God. Just give me the itinerary 10 years from now so I know. No, then you're going to step into pride and arrogance and not trust him. So oftentimes it's one step. We see that illustrated through Scripture too. Absolutely. It does teach you patience. Henry will tell you, I said, "You don't have any patience?" He goes, "No, I have no patience. At least he knows it. Hopefully he'll gain some eventually. All right, so verses 5 and 6. So number 3, I would have here under verses 5 and 6, traveling in holiness. Look at verse 5. "And Joshua said unto the people, Sanctify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you. And Joshua spake unto the priests, saying, Take up the ark of the covenant, and passed over before the people. And they took up the ark of the covenant and went before the people." And so they needed a heart, if you will. First of all, they needed a heart of holiness to follow in holiness as they follow the Holy One, if that makes any sense. You need a heart of holiness to walk in holiness as they follow the Holy One. Here's a few verses that came to my mind. 1 Chronicles 22 and verse 19 says, "Now set your heart and your soul to seek the Lord your God. Arise, therefore, and build ye the sanctuary of the Lord to bring the ark of the covenant of the Lord and his holy vessel and the holy vessels of God into the house that is to be built to the name of the Lord." And again, I read that because God is holy. And they knew that. They knew that about the Lord. Isaiah 40 and verse 25 says, "To whom then will ye liken me, or shall I be equal, saith the Holy One?" Someone look up 1 Peter 1, or all of you can. It's something to have marked in your Bible if you don't. I'll have it on the screen in a minute, but I want you to see it in your Bibles. You've heard this verse read many times, but it's sometimes it's good to see these things in your own Bible. 1 Peter 1, verse 15 and 16. Someone read that for me when you get there. Nothing changes about God, as you see from Old Testament to New. 15 and 16. Okay. Be ye holy. And as you look at that in the New Testament, this is a state of being. This isn't like it's one time and then you go on. This is a continuous state. Be ye holy. It's continual. And that's what we see here in Joshua chapter 3, right, is that sanctify yourselves. Set yourselves apart. And as you see this being set apart in holiness is the sense of this word. Sanctify yourselves. That's your responsibility. It's my responsibility. Set yourself apart for the journey. Okay? You're a vehicle for God's purposes. You know, before we travel, before we go somewhere, I'm going to do a run through of our vehicle. I'm essentially going to set it apart for a particular journey. I'm going to check this, check that, check this, maybe make sure I've got other provisions for this particular trip. So in one sense, I'm setting my vehicle apart for this journey. There's meticulous care about, okay, there's gas, check the oil, pressure in the tire, certain other provisions that whatever trip you're going on. Our bodies are vessels. It's a vehicle for the Lord across the globe, and we need to have certain checks and balances to be set apart, sanctified, meet for the Master's use, if you will. And so that's our responsibility. So sanctify yourselves, because God's going to do wonders. You ever think like that? God's going to do work tomorrow, and I don't want to miss it. God's going to do something tomorrow. He's going to have something for me. He's going to speak to me. He's going to touch my heart. He's going to give me an opportunity. He's going to do something wondrous in my life tomorrow. I need to have myself ready. Do we think like that? It's just another day. You ever said that before? It's just another day. It's a day where God's going to be working in. And so He wants them to have themselves truly set aside in holiness, because God's going to do wonders among you. And they don't need to miss it. There's going to be things they're going to learn with this wondrous thing they're going to do, or that God's going to do. And so you need to sanctify your own hearts. And then God was going to do wonders very soon. Very soon. As we're going to learn in just a moment, they can't afford to miss this. This is going to do a work in their life, in their relationship with Joshua, etc. They can't miss it. How many times do we miss God's work around our life just because we're not allowing ourselves to be aware enough, to be sanctified enough? They can't miss this. But I think about how many times I missed things because I was distracted. I wasn't sanctified. I didn't set my heart and mind aside for the day. So this was a serious preparation. And Joshua then gives them the green light. It says, then they, in verse 6, and they took up the Ark of the Covenant and went before the people. Green light, time to go. So it wasn't until all this preparation was done here, now we can all go. So if you want to move properly forward, you got to follow the Lord, but you got to purify your heart to follow Him well and not miss what He has in store for you. And then verses 7 through verse 13, let's just read these through here. And God develops personal greatness here. And the Lord said to Joshua, this day will I begin to magnify thee in the sight of all Israel, and that they may know that I was with Moses, so I will be with thee. And thou shalt command the priests that bear the ark of the covenant, saying, when ye are come to the brink of the water Jordan, ye shall stand still in Jordan. And Joshua said unto the children of Israel, come hither, and hear the words of the Lord your God. And Joshua said, hereby ye shall know that the living God is among you, and that He will without fail drive from before you the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Hivites, and the Perizzites, and the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and the Jebusites. Behold, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth passeth over before you into Jordan. Now therefore take you 12 men out of the tribes of Israel, and of every tribe a man. He's preparing what's going to happen in chapter 4. And it shall come to pass, as soon as the soles of the feet of the priests that bear the ark of the Lord of all the earth, shall rest in the waters of Jordan, that the waters of Jordan shall be cut off from the waters that come down from above, and they shall stand upon a heap. So as you go back and you look at verse 7, it says, Joshua, this day I will begin to magnify thee in the sight of all Israel. So first of all, I want you to see this, is that greatness from God is a process. He said, this day will I begin to magnify thee. And so Joshua is to be patient in his role as a leader. I'm going to magnify you. I'm going to begin to do that here in this particular way at this time. And there's a reason for that. So a leader needed to be patient, and the people need to be gracious and faithful, because this is a beginning work for them. The word magnify means to make great, to cause or to be a major significance or importance. Okay? But God produces the greatness. If there's going to be anything great done through your life for the Lord, God's got to produce it. It's not going to be something you manufacture. God says, I will magnify thee in the sight of all Israel. Okay? Here's a few verses just for the sake of time. I'm not going to be able to get through all of these verses tonight. But notice that God produces greatness. 2 Chronicles 1:1 says, and Solomon the son of David was strengthened in his kingdom, and the Lord his God was with him, and what? Magnified him exceedingly. Who did the magnifying? God. And then 1 Chronicles 29:25 says, and the Lord magnified Solomon exceedingly in the sight of all Israel, and bestowed upon him such royal majesty as had not been on any king before him in Israel. Who did the magnifying? God. And then if you go on to chapter 4 of Joshua, in verse 14, you're going to see this happening, as he said it would. On that day the Lord magnified Joshua in the sight of all Israel, and they feared him as they feared Moses all the days of his life. And so understand God produces the greatness. Okay? And we're going to get into next time why. I've seen some, and even read testimonies and biographies too of men that thinks about greatness, and even some that were Christian leaders. They allowed greatness to think that it was their greatness. This greatness wasn't really about Joshua. This greatness needed to be developed in Joshua's role for him to do his role well, but the purpose was really for them to see God. So God produces the greatness for a much higher purpose than for your ego. Okay, He doesn't want to build your ego. He wants them to see Him. Okay. And I'll give you an illustration that as God is working greatness in the life of Joshua. It reminded me of a time where we used to develop some pictures where we did state national convention through the Christian schools. And there was a black and white pictures that you do. So I've never done it before, but you take the negative, you go into a dark room, and you transfer the picture, and then you go through a process of solutions. It would be transferred onto a bigger piece of photo paper. And maybe you've done this before, and you would soak it for so long in different solutions, and for so long a time, and then you'd rinse it, and then you would hang it. And so you see this, and the picture then develops, and it's a great picture. And that's what I see with Joshua's life. Is I'm going to begin to magnify you. But it reminded me of like the different solutions and developing this picture, and then you let it hang there and dry, and then it's there. And so this picture, this greatness, is going to develop a picture, and it's not about Joshua. It's about the God they're following. It's the God that Joshua serves. And so let God develop what He wants to in your life. Only He can do it. He'll do it for His glory. Anybody got anything to add? Anything at all? I didn't get as far as I wanted to, but that's okay.